if you haven't figured it out yet, this is Head Pro Life. This is the first episode in a series where we get a better understanding of what it means to be a head pro, what goes into it, and what might surprise you. I really hope we learned something today about what it's like to be a head pro. And I am very excited to welcome today's guest. This is PJ Hall of Fame, Kansas Golf Hall of Fame, Carolina Golf Royalty, Randy Syring. And it feels weird calling you Randy Syring and not coach, but we'll add in some formalities for this. It's actually kind of strange first guess because you're not currently a head pro, you're a director of golf here at Salina Country Club, but we'll go even before that. We'll go back to 74, 75 when you first started working here in the bag room.
Yeah, spring of 74.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you first started working here as a 16-year-old bag boy. What other jobs were on the table? I was thinking about that the other night because this is the only job you've ever had. So when you were debating on what your first job was going to be, what other jobs were considered?
Well, prior to working out here, I had worked at a few other places. I worked at a amusement park here in Salina for like 60 cents an hour.
What?
and had lawn mowing service, and did some stuff like that. But through a family connection, I heard that they were looking for some bagroom help out here, and fortunately managed to get the job. So there was never any doubt in my mind that if I had the opportunity to work at a golf course, that was going to be my first choice. So there probably were other part-time jobs on the table at fast food restaurants and things like that, but this seemed like a way better gig than any of those.
Did you play golf prior to working here, or was this when you
yeah.
started?
Yeah, I was lucky. My dad cut off clubs for me when I was 5 years old, so I've been playing golf my whole life, basically. So
I can definitely relate to that. Yeah,
yeah.
My dad got me started before I could even walk. Actually, I'm sure I could find the picture somewhere, but he's been holding me up hitting putts at Manhattan Country Club. That was my first time ever playing golf. I've still never played the course.
Manhattan Country Club?
Never played Manhattan Country Club. My dad was the assistant pro there forever. That's where that's where I first started playing golf. It's just crazy that I've never actually played the course, but
that is crazy.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to get out there at some point. But so you started working out here under Wally Beats. That was your original head pro that you got to work under, and you see his name everywhere out here. You got the Wally Beats Invitational. That actually was just renamed to the Stampede, right?
Correct.
But
yes.
for a while, it was the Wally Beats in memorial for Mr.
Yes, it was the Wally Beats Classic. When he retired in 1988, which is when I took over as head professional.
Yeah.
They at his retirement party, they renamed the Salina Country Club Invitational to the Wally Beats Classic, and so it stayed that way for 30 years.
I gotta say that's a way better name than the Salina Country Club Classic.
Yes, I agree.
But so you worked under Wally Beats. Did he ever have to discipline you in the bag room, or were you pretty clean cut?
Oh yes, no, he disciplined me on many occasions for not cleaning clubs properly, for not making better use of my spare time. He had all kinds of sage advice for me over the years.
What was your best? What would you say was your number one way to misuse your spare time here when you were in the bag room? Don't give your current bag room employees any ideas, but
outside taking practice swings, looking at the reflection of my swing in the windows.
Seems like a great time. Seems like a really.
I thought it was a perfect use of my spare time, but he didn't agree.
Just agree to disagree and take your lumps and move on, I guess.
But I wouldn't let the current bag room guys do that, so I understand.
No, of course
now.
not. Of course not. So what would you say is the number one lesson you learned from Wally? You said you got some sage advice from him. What would be the one you took away?
That Wally was a master of making people feel comfortable when they walked in the door, making them glad that they came to Salina Country Club. And I tried to watch him all the time in how he greeted people and how he treated people when they walked in the door, regardless of whether they were a member or a guest or just here looking around or whatever. Every person that came in the door, he made them feel welcome and comfortable. And I think I think over the years, I hope I picked that up from him
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it really made an impression on me.
That's what I was gonna say. Is I would, as far as, and we'll get into this later, the percentages of what goes into being a head pro, but I would say that the one thing I picked up from you is that I've never seen somebody walk into the pro shop and you didn't like treat them like they were the most important person in the world. And I'd say that's if any head pros are going to take something away from this interview, it'd be that. Make sure that every single person that comes into the office or the pro shop, make them feel like the most important player in the world, and that's that goes a million miles. So, worked in the bag room, got all that great advice from Wally, and then when you graduated from college, you played at Marymount. You decided to turn professional.
Correct.
And in 1980, you took the associate professional. I noticed they said that on the website. It sounds a lot better than assistant professional. I wish they'd still call it that, but associate professional job while you're chasing the PGA Tour dream, going out to California and Florida, playing on those mini tours. What was the balance like between trying to play on those mini tours and work at the club? Because obviously you can't really commute every day from California to Florida to work. So what were the hours you worked?
The first year was really the only year that the balance was difficult because my PGA Tour dreams or dream of playing golf for a living just in general changed after my first mini tour experience out in California. Susie and I went out there for that first winter, and I after a pretty long period of time of playing out there, not really getting rich on my finishes, living out of a suitcase and 99-cent breakfasts and laundromats, and I honestly we didn't enjoy the life very much. Even though I still loved playing professional golf, I loved competitive golf. We decided together after that year that the club professional, teaching professional life was probably more fit for us. And I really felt like at that point there were a lot of future great players on that tour out in California that I played on. I realized that I probably didn't have the game to be a great tour player. That at best case scenario, I would be, very average, and I still had a long way to go to get there, I felt like. And so we made the decision to come back, and I resumed my job as assistant professional at the club. And then for a number of years following, I still went and played mini tours in the winter, but more just to sharpen my game, get the experience, and I still love to compete and enjoy the time off, enjoy the winters. But I was not playing to try to be a PGA Tour professional. I was playing for the love of it and the enjoyment of it. And I was fortunate that some members here would sponsor me during the winters, and so that took kind of the financial pressure off of it too.
So when you went to play, was there any percentage of your brain that thought maybe I'll catch fire and be able to get onto the PGA Tour, or was it really strictly just I'm only doing this for the experience and the stories?
Well, you probably know me better than that. So, of course, there's always that shred of underlying hope where you think, if I was to win, 3 or 4 of these, and my game would catch fire. You find that magic swing thought. Sure, I think there probably wouldn't be a professional golfer around that would deny that would tempt them to go out and give it another try. But I liked my life. I liked life as a club professional and a teaching professional. I developed a passion for teaching early on, and I enjoyed that, and I liked being home with the kids, and so it really for me was the perfect scenario.
Yeah, just getting to enjoy the summers in Salina, which are great because the membership here has always been fantastic from what I've understood. I don't know what it was like back when you were. I assume it was still great.
Yeah. It was a great club to work at, and being at a really nice club like this, really getting to raise my family in a community like Salina, where it's a fairly small community and pretty close knit, where you know everybody, and so I've had a great career. I have no regrets about those first 7-8 years of trying to balance that playing versus being a club professional and teaching. So
So how many years did you actually play the mini tours?
probably 80 to I believe 87 was probably the last year that we went, because our kids were getting old enough. My first daughter was born in 84, so it would have been 88 that she went to school.
Yeah.
And so it really wasn't an option to take off, and I wasn't going to leave home for 3 months and not see my family. So
Yeah.
that pretty much took care of it from there.
Did the kids travel with you?
They
when you
did
go to
for
California?
several years. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. So, and that takes us all the way right up to the 1988, the promotion to the head pro job. So Wally Beats obviously steps down. What was it were you feeling the pressure to fill the shoes of Wally Beats? Obviously he was an iconic head golf professional. Or did you feel like you, under the years of working with Wally Beats, do you feel like you'd gotten the experience under your belt to where you felt like you were prepared for that?
That's a really good question. I certainly felt a lot of pressure, especially that first year. I decided that I would go the extra mile every day, that I would work the hours, do whatever it took to make sure that they knew that I was going to adequately fill his shoes, and they were big shoes to fill. But I also was fortunate that Wally's last couple of years that he was head professional, he slowly involved me in the entire management of the operation, and made sure that that I was ready for the job, and that there wasn't anything that I was going to be surprised about. So I felt prepared, but they were also big shoes to fill. So I was nervous about that, especially the first year. Had a really good first year. It was very busy, and we worked hard and put in a lot of hours. But after that, I felt like that the membership from there on trusted that I could do the job.
And so when you finally took the plunge and made that shift, obviously, and we'll talk about this later, but Rob Carlson took over for you when you decided to step down from the head professional job, and you were around here to help him with that transition. Did Wally stick around to help you with that, or was he
yes.
done?
Yeah, no, he was here every day, and he did a little part-time work for us. He enjoyed working on the cart fleet, and so he did some part-time work for us. And yeah, for the next few years, he was around a lot. Most days of the week, he would be out at some time or another, and I consulted him a lot. There were a number of occasions where I brought him into the office and said, "Hey, how would you handle this situation?" or "How did you handle this situation?" And I was really glad he was still around and still kind of keeping me under his wing, even though I had taken over his job. So,
well, that's good. And I'm sure a job like this, and this club has a lot of history, and there's obviously a lot of people around here that remember. I'm sure there's members that still remember Wally Beats, and they still remember obviously when you were head professional, and I'm sure Rob felt like there were some big shoes to fill when he took your spot. But so we'll move on to when you were. So you've worked as a head golf professional at Salina Country Club from 1988 until 2017, and very unfortunately, Mr. Randy Bemis, the head coach for Kansas Wesleyan, passed away after a long fight with he had lung issues?
He had cancer.
Yeah. But he had, and once again, you're filling some big shoes, because Randy Bemis had a really good reputation as being a great coach for Kansas Wesleyan and pulling the program like really up to the brink of breaking through from being kind of I don't want to say subpar, but maybe not. He brought the program up significantly.
Absolutely.
So what were those conversations like when he was trying to get you to take over his head position? Because I know you were very happy here as a head professional. What was it that he told you that got you to make the change from head professional to head coach?
I was ready to step back a little bit. Obviously, the golf professional life is long hours. I mean, you love it. You love what you do, and you love going to the golf course every day. But the people that pay the price is your family. And I was ready to step back a little bit and try to spend a little more time with my wife and do some of the things that we've been talking about doing. And college coaching seemed like a natural transition for me because my passion had been teaching all of my career. Coach Bemis did a great job of bringing the program up to a very competitive level. He recruited a lot of good players, and so I was fortunate that he thought of me as a potential replacement for him. And then as time progressed and his health deteriorated, um, he paid me a visit one day and said, my dream for the program is for you to take over. And I talked to my wife about it, and we both decided that the timing was good, and so we decided to go that direction, and I loved it. I loved coaching for those 2 years. Now that I'm back at the club full time as director of golf, there's a lot about it that I miss. Not the travel, but
Yeah, I was going to
it's a
say,
lot about the other stuff that I
when you
miss.
said you wanted to spend more time with your family, I'm thinking about all the times that we pulled you away from your family for a week straight to go to Texas or Oklahoma or some
Yes.
other place with terrible weather. But yeah, that I I think, and while it might not have been exactly what you were expecting as far as having more free time, I think the impact that you had on the people that you worked with was supreme, and I think it was definitely
Thank you.
worth the time.
Thank
But
you.
for those who don't know, I actually played for Kansas Wesleyan the year that Randy Syring took over. That was my first year there, so I actually never got the chance to meet Randy Bemis. I didn't even. I think you were the head coach when you, or
Yes.
actually Howard was technically the head coach, but you
Yeah.
were acting as head coach.
Yes.
And
I had been hired. I wasn't going to start until semester of your first year there as active head coach, but I was helping Howard Mahan, who did a great job transitioning from Coach Bemis to me. I was helping him recruit and try to get things set for when I was going to come in January. So
recruiting. So you've had some experience in recruiting, but from the other side. So you were the coach of some players like Dodge Kimmer, for instance. You were his coach. He ended up going to Stanford. Grant Herrenbruck went to play at KU. Cole Elmore playing at Lewis University. I'm probably missing a ton, but you've been on the other side of recruiting. So what about being on that side of recruiting transitioned to recruiting kids to come to your college?
the 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 great part about being on that side of it is when I would talk to college coaches about players that were my students that they were potentially recruiting. um, I, I learned what they were looking for. I learned most coaches, number one, are looking for are they a good fit for our program, academically, personality wise, are they difficult to get along with? Are they easy to get along with? And how are they going to fit into our program and our setting? And then of course the playing ability, and are they a developing player? Have they already arrived? Are they going to step in and have an impact on the program right away? And good coaches know that the swing coach, that the local golf professional, has been around these kids every day of their life basically, and they have a lot of inside knowledge. And so when I started recruiting for Kansas Wesleyan, I tapped in on that quite often. There were a lot of times when I knew the golf professional at the club where that young man or young woman grew up, and so I could get some background information on them that you can't get on a website or from people that what the answer is going to be. So it really helped lead me into kind of knowing what that side of it was like, and also what it was like from the college side of it, of trying to find that kid that's the right fit for your program, and that is not only going to have an impact, but is going to be a positive influence on the chemistry of the team.
So as a head pro, and as we're talking about junior golf and recruiting and everything, you've had the experience of helping kids pick which college they want to go to. I'm sure there might be some kids listening to this that want to go play college golf, what would be your biggest piece of advice to catch the attention of a Power Five school or wherever you want to play?
Play in the best tournaments you can play in. Um, always, always put your best foot forward. And when you're choosing that school, go where you can play. Go somewhere where you know you can step in from day one and help that program. I've seen a lot of players go to really good D1 programs over the years that were good high school players and still had a lot of upside to them, but went somewhere where they didn't get to play the first year or two. I mean, they were on the team and they got to practice, but they didn't get to play in tournaments, and you just you can't become a better tournament player without playing in tournaments. So I felt like for a long time now, based on those experiences, that a high school golfer should go, of course, go to the best program that he or she can go to, but know that they have a good chance of stepping in and playing from day one.
And so, and in relation to that, what would you, as far as like a perfect practice day, when you talk about playing versus practicing, how much of a day should be taken up by playing versus how much should be taken by like hitting balls and hitting chips and putting?
Well, as you know, I believe in a lot of playing.
Yes,
So,
yes. I remember plenty of the we call it it's not Hell Week, but it's the first week when we get to school, and it's the week before classes start. We played 36 holes a day for a week straight.
right,
That's
and got in some practice.
yeah.
That's the perfect practice day.
Yeah, 36 holes a day, and then kind of just work on some
Exactly.
stuff a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the kids that spend all their time on the range or an exorbitant amount of time on the range sometimes can do more harm than good. If you're making a swing change, of course, that's there's a lot of repetition involved in that. That requires a lot of hours on the range. But if you're not making a swing change, you're just tweaking a ball flight or something like that, then that's what you practice on the range or in the practice area. A lot of short game work. As you know, I'm huge on short game. But then the ability to take it to the golf course, to take it out there and put it to use, put it in action, and be able to adjust on the fly, be able to adjust during that round. And if you don't like that ball flight, being able to change that ball flight, being able to fix what's going on while you're out on the golf course. And you don't get that on the range. You only get that on the golf course. Nobody's swing is perfect. Everybody has to make adjustments out on the course, and that's where you have to learn to do it.
That's what I've noticed too. After working with you all these years, that's the one thing that you've helped me with the most is making adjustments on the course. Because I've always just I go out and I'm playing, and if I start hitting it bad, I would obviously try to fix it, but I would have no idea how to. But that's one thing that I feel like I've learned from you is that if there's no players that go out, almost never. There's nobody goes out and plays and just has it and then has it the entire round.
Right.
You're going to hit a bad shot, and then you got to figure out, okay, what caused that? What do I need to do to not let that happen again? And that turns out to be one of the biggest things about playing good golf. And that's something you just don't get while you're hitting balls on the range.
That's exactly right. It's a tough thing to learn, and it sounds a bit defeatist, but you know, going to the first tee knowing you're going to hit some bad shots, it's going to happen. Nobody gets through 18 holes hitting it perfectly. How you adjust, how you react, being able to stay positive, not thinking that your swing has gone away. It hasn't. It's every day is a bit of a chess game, and the better you get at figuring that out, of knowing your tendencies and knowing what to do about them on the golf course, how to change your ball flights, how to make the ball do what you want it to do every day when you're out there. You can't get that on the range.
And additionally, when you go out and you're playing and there's no way to simulate there's no way to simulate being 6 under through 12 and having to close out those last 6 holes and shoot an actual round. And there's also no way to simulate doing that in a tournament.
Right.
And you can be, from my experience at least, I think I was 6 under through 12 10 times before I ever ended up shooting 6 under. And it's such an interesting dynamic between like hitting shots on the range and trying to put pressure on yourself there, and then actually having the pressure of, I've been playing for 3 hours and I'm playing really good and I really don't want to mess this up.
Right.
And
And there's no teacher like failure.
that's a great quote. Actually.
Pain teaches you a lot, and looking back and at that failure and knowing, okay, this is what I'll do different next time, and maybe that works next time, maybe it doesn't, but eventually, the more times you knock at that door, eventually it opens up and you figure out how you do it, versus someone else, and how they get through that time period, but how you do it, and you put your own signature on it.
There's nothing a coach can say to you that mimics the feeling of, oh man, I have a 2-shot lead and I just doubled that hole, and now I have no momentum and I have to figure out a way to get the lead back.
Right. Yeah. There's no range scenario that's going to prepare you for that.
Absolutely not. No. And there's also no putting drill. And I know there are putting drills that put pressure on you, but there's just no putting drill. Like, I've been at this tournament for 3 days and I got to make this putt to keep the lead or make the cut even.
Right.
What would you say is harder, keeping a lead or making the cut?
Making the cut.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Through my experience, I graduated in 2019. I've been playing professional golf, or trying to play professional golf. There's been some hitches in that, but my experience in tournaments, I've won a fair amount of golf tournaments, not a ton, and I've won one professional event, but the mental struggle of knowing, like, I have to birdie like 1 out of my last 3 holes to make a check,
right,
versus I have to birdie 1 out of my last 3 holes to win the tournament. It just doesn't even compare. And it's so interesting that you have so much more mental turmoil trying to get from 35th to 32nd place to make a check versus trying to get from 3rd to 1st place.
Right. And many times that's because you don't have the money to get to the next stop. And so the putt you're standing over, if you're standing over a putt to win the tournament, you're still going to get 2nd place. You're still going to get a paycheck.
Yeah.
But guys that are walking that fine line between being able to stay out there or having to go back home and get a regular job, that's pressure. That's a lot of pressure. And
yeah.
I think, I mean, I know there's players out there that will tell you that winning is the only thing, but I can tell you that I was in that situation. You've been in that situation. Real pressure is when you're standing over that putt and you got to make it to get to the next week.
Yeah, and winning is the only thing when you have job security.
Yeah,
so Rory McIlroy standing over a putt to make the cut. It's like, all right, well, I'm not going to lose my card this week. Like, what does it matter if I make the cut versus if I don't win this tournament, golf Twitter is going to make fun of me for a year. And I don't know if that weighs in, but I'm sure it weighs in more than the $1.2 million that he's just going to add to his stack of $15 million he made in 1 week in the FedEx Cup. That's interesting, yeah. And when you think about, like, the how much the Golf Channel for the Phil and Tiger match, for instance, tried to drum up these guys can win $9 million in one round. It's like, okay, cool. He probably made $9 million off of Phil probably made $9 million last month from that arthritis medicine he's speaking for.
At that stage, I mean, I realize that's still a lot of money, but that's not the type of pressure about that a player will feel with no money in his bank account trying to get to the next tournament.
It's all about percentages. $9 million is what would that be for Tiger? Like 1% of his net worth. So yeah, if I go out and I play for like $50, it's not going to, like, kill me necessarily. I'm not so scared of that, but if I go out and play for, it's all about percentages. And when I hear $9 million, that would literally change my life forever. But for him, it's just like, oh, cool, I can buy another privacy yacht. This is great.
Right. Or donate to his favorite charity.
Well, and that's what I was going to get into. I think the idea of having those matches where they're playing for, oh, this isn't for me. This is to change these lives that otherwise, maybe if I don't make this putt, obviously this isn't going to happen, but if I don't make this putt, maybe this family isn't going to get to eat tomorrow. I feel like that's got to be a lot more pressure. And that's what makes it more interesting, because you can tell that they have a lot more emotions riding on it, because they know, oh, if I don't, oh, hold on. Does this stop? Camera. It's
Hasn't been turned off the whole time.
No, just for the last couple minutes. It happens. It's whatever. These, I think viewers will understand, or they won't. Cameras don't record forever. They record for a maximum of 30 minutes. I don't know how to turn that off.
Okay.
I wish I did, but growing pains with this podcast getting started, or interview show, or whatever you want to call it. What was I talking about? The
$9 million.
The charity. Yeah. That's got to be. I enjoy watching that a lot more because you can tell they actually care about it. And
They probably feel more pressure playing for other people than they do playing for themselves at this point.
So okay, this actually brings up a great point. So you've played a number of pro-ams as a head professional.
Mm-hmm.
Can you estimate how many pro-ams you've played? Could you even give me a ballpark estimate within 50 of how many you've played?
Yeah, and part of the reason for that is I was not as active a player in pro-ams and section events as a lot of other guys. By the time I finish up here Sunday evening, having one day off if I'm lucky, taking that day to go play in a pro-am and not spending that with my family rarely seemed to be the right decision. And so, I would try to do that maybe once a month or so I'd say
well, I'm going to fact check you, so you better be.
I have no idea how many pro-ams I've played in.
I'm not going to fact check
and
you.
There's,
that sounds
and
terrible.
It would be impossible to fact check the pro-ams I played in, because back when I started playing in pro-ams, you wouldn't find any record of those anywhere.
and I wouldn't want to do that research. That just seems like an absolute nightmare to try to go through all the records of pro-ams that have happened within a 150-mile radius, and then go through and obviously I wouldn't have to go too far down, because obviously you'd be in the top 5 just about every time, but to check and see where your name is.
Sometimes not.
So so the pro-am, the reason I brought that up is because we were just talking about the match and how they raise so much money for charity. But one of the most entertaining things for me was watching these greatest athletes of all time, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, step into a sport that's not their lane and try to compete with people who have competed at the highest level. Did you ever have an experience like that? Did you ever play with an athlete who had...
Yes, yeah. It's happened on a number of occasions. I had the good fortune of being able to coach a very good D1 basketball player not long after he got out of college, and he married into a golfing family and wanted to pick up the game, and because he was a very athletic person and very competitive, he wanted to be good at it, and that's what he found so fascinating about the game, was that he wasn't very good at it and that his athleticism didn't seem to make much difference. So it's fun coaching him and watch him turn into a good golfer. But golf is one of those sports where a natural talent might accelerate your progress, but it still requires the day-to-day hard work. So
yeah, well, and I'm going to give you an opportunity to name drop here. Have you ever played with a professional athlete that just is a household name, or maybe that even a niche sports fan might recognize?
Oh gosh, professional athletes. Well, more of my favorite was Fred Patek, who used to be shortstop for the Kansas City Royals.
Okay.
He was my favorite. I got to play with him a few times. He was a good player, and a great shortstop too. But his competitiveness, through being that athletic all those years, carried over into golf, and he worked really hard at it. And he was at a club where a good friend of mine was, and that's how I met him and got to know him. And he came and played in our pro-am a couple of times, and he was my favorite. I got to go to a Kansas City Royals baseball game with him one time, and what was funny was I wanted to find out about everything that was going on the field and the intricacies of what the catcher was talking to the pitcher about and so on, and all he wanted to talk about was golf. So but it was a very enjoyable.
So
evening.
who won out in that conversation?
He
What
did.
was okay?
He
Good.
did. We talked
Good.
about golf.
Yeah, obviously. I bet you made sure next time you played with him to only talk about baseball.
Yeah, he didn't. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of knowledge there and a lot of stories to share, and he was pretty good about that. But every time I was around him, he much preferred talking about golf.
I was really hoping you would have had played with George Brett, and I'm really surprised you hadn't played with George
I have
Brett because
not played
I feel like most.
not played with George Brett. He's a friend of a number of my friends, but haven't had the opportunity to play golf with him.
Yeah, I guess now that I think about it, he probably hasn't come out to Salina all that many times.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah, but well, I've heard he's quite an interesting guy to play with.
Yeah.
I've heard he's
a pretty good player. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure that competitiveness and athleticism also translates over to that. So what's if I'm going to give you a second to think about this, but your favorite pro-am story? I've only played 2 pro-ams. One I won it and it was out here, and the other one I almost got dead last. So I've bookended pro-ams. I think I shot 81 at a pro-am up in Nebraska when I played the Nebraska Open. And my experience there was very different from my experience here, where through no fault of their own, the people in Nebraska you could tell they didn't play a whole lot of golf, and they were really nice people, and I enjoyed playing with them. But it was kind of like, the typical, they don't really play, but their company's having an outing, so they come out and they're just like, yeah, let's play some golf. And I had one hole where when the wheels really fell off, I actually 4-putted from about 7 feet. I had a really good chip up onto the green. I short-sided myself really bad. Had a 7-footer for par. Got a little aggressive with it. Went back and forth 3 or 4 times. Whatever I ended up making on the hole. I think I made a 7. And I had this 4-footer coming back for par, for a double bogey to 3-putt. And I didn't even get it to the hole. Like, I left it short. And the people in my group were like, "Oh, that was a really good try. You almost got it there. You're doing great." Like, and I just, in the mental turmoil I was going through to not turn around and go, "Oh yeah? Yeah, you think I'm doing great? I do this for a living. I just 4-putted. I appreciate your support." And just having to put a smile on my face is one of the hardest things I've ever done in golf, is to act like I was still having a good time while I'm just, for lack of a better word, being patronized while I'm really struggling. I would assume you have some similar stories, but
Actually, I have one very similar. It was one I've been through two low periods with putting, and fortunately been able to come out the other side probably being a better putter. But going through those periods where you feel like you can't make a 2-footer
yep.
can be devastating. And I was playing in a pro-am one time, and it was during one of those periods of where I even a 1-footer made me nervous. 2-footer was like, this, if I make this, I'm going to be elated. But by the end of the day, I had to apologize to my group for having to tolerate that, for having to witness that for 18 holes. And 2 of the 3 amateurs were very gracious about it, said, "Hey, boy, we feel for you. You should have shot really low today with how good you hit it, but it was not a good score." but one of the amateurs was visibly disgusted.
Oh my!
He was not happy that he had been paired with a golf professional who was having immense struggles on the greens. And so I tried to, and the goal of the professional and the pro-am is to make sure their group has a good time. And I bought him a beer afterwards. I did everything I could to try to make him feel better about the day. But by the end of the day, I'm sure he probably told the local tournament director, "Don't ever pair me with that guy again."
Yeah, I bet. Well, then part of his anger might have been that he paid $300 or $400 to get into that tournament, and you got to walk away with your minimum check.
I don't think there was a minimum check in that one, actually.
Oh, there wasn't?
No.
Oh, no.
I think I walked away with nothing also. But yeah, getting paired with a pro who's struggling to make a 3-footer probably is a little disheartening.
Yeah,
You've
that's
taken the day off from work to do that and so on. But
yeah.
anyway,
I think they all show up expecting to see 340-yard, 2-yard draws down the middle, wedges stuffed, and
right,
never missing
right.
a putt. But that's just not the reality for anybody.
Yeah, that's
Everybody's going to
right.
hit bad shots,
And
and
as you know,
sometimes
I play a fairly boring game anyway, and so
I wouldn't call it that. I'd call it consistent. I would
but
meticulous.
yeah, I'm never going to wow anybody with my long drives. It never did. Just hopefully play a round of golf without too many train wrecks. That's usually my goal.
Yeah, and I'd say you're usually pretty successful with that. Um, so we've talked about pro-ams, we've talked about all this stuff outside of the pro shop or outside of the course, but now I want to get into the percentages. And this is a question I think I'm going to ask just about every head pro. What percentage of being a head pro is being good at golf?
Ooh, what percentage?
Actually, I'll give you all the options so you know how to weigh it. What percentage of being a head pro is being good at golf? What percentage is being a good instructor? What percentage is being a good people person? And then what did I miss? So we'll start with good at golf.
Okay, I think it's important for the head professional to try to keep their game in shape. It's a difficult thing to do because the hours can be horrendous and it's hard to find time to dedicate to your own game. But I do think it's important because I do think, right or wrong, fair or unfair, it does bring a level of respect from the membership if you can play the game pretty well. And so there are some members that are never going to take a lesson from you if they can beat you. And so
Yeah.
there's and again, that's, I mean, most of the people that David Ledbetter or Butch Harmon give lessons to can beat them, but they had their day. They were both professional golfers, but that's not really fair, but it's true.
The old Gary Player philosophy.
Yes, but it's true, and so I think it's important to keep your game, but far from being the most important. I think certainly personality, the ability to get along with people day in, day out from all walks of life. And as we discussed earlier, being able to make them feel good about belonging to the club or coming out to the golf course that day is the most important asset. And
You keep going, you're fine.
okay. So what was the third one?
The third one was being a good instructor.
Okay, I do think that is important, and unless you're at a club or course where there is a designated instructor, where there's a director of instruction or something like that, then that would take that responsibility off of the head professional or director of golf or whatever. But I do think it's really important. I remember Sam Reynolds, the great pro down at Hickory Hills in Springfield, said one time when he was getting ready to retire, he said, "I haven't had anybody ask me who's going to run our tournaments. I haven't had anybody ask me, who's going to help me with, buying something in the pro shop. But he said, I've had a whole lot of people come up and ask me who's going to help me with my game." And when I heard him say that, it really meant something. I realized then that's really where you build the relationships with your members. That's where you become an important part of not only their game but their life, as helping them learn to enjoy the game more.
So if we and I obviously don't want to force you to put a percentage on this, but I kind of want to compare these among, because I assume we're going to end up doing a lot of these. I'd like to compare the percentages among different head professionals. But if you had to give percentages to good at golf, good instructor, and good people person, and then is there anything I missed on that?
Well, you have to be, nowadays you're really a department manager.
Okay.
So you have to be a good manager. You have to be an efficient, detail-oriented manager, much more so than a golf professional used to be. There's a lot of facets to the operation now that you have to spend time on that my predecessor Wally didn't spend a lot of time on. Bottom line, issues, financial things, and managing personnel. He was very good at it. He was really kind of a natural at it. But so I would say probably 70% is the ability to get along with people and make them feel good about being there that day.
Okay.
And making them feel welcome. And then I would say the 20% would be instruction. and then 10% playing. And the being a good manager is just part of the job. If you're not a good manager, you're probably not going to get the job anyway. And if you did get the job and you're not a good manager, you're probably not going to be there long. So, so those other things won't matter anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, that makes a lot of sense. So you were, I just want to touch on this briefly, but you used to be, you used to make your own clubs.
Mm-hmm.
You used to have the Randy Syring Club Company. This
Mm-hmm.
might be a bit of an afterthought, but the you used to make, and can you just explain to me how that worked? Because I remember you telling me about that one time, just kind of offhanded, and I had so many questions at the time, but we were working on my swing and I didn't want to like get away from that. But
there was a company at the time that you could order custom made iron heads from, and woods also, metal woods. And so at the custom fitting world at that time was not like it is now. It was honestly, it wasn't as sophisticated and it wasn't as promoted as it is now. I became a believer in custom fitting many years ago, and was trying to figure out a way to do a better job of that. And so I started working with a company that I could buy my own iron heads with my custom logo on them. And then the golf shop here in Salina, who it does a great club repair business, I would do the custom fitting, and then he would assemble the clubs for me to the specs that I had fit the person. And so it lasted a number of years. It was a great way to get people custom fit into a good quality set of clubs for about half of what they could buy a name brand club for at that time. And so,
really,
yes, and so we were able to get people into really nice sets of clubs that were custom fit for them for a lot less money, and it really fit our market and our demographics well at the time. And I played with them for a number of years.
Interesting. And so they got a custom set of clubs for half the price, at the low cost of having your name on their irons.
Yes, yeah, shameless self promotion.
Yeah, exactly. But you got to get it where you can take it. And then you also got into training aids. So you were a co-founder of Eyeline Golf. You worked with Hank Haney.
Well, actually, Sam Froggatt founded Eyeline Golf. That's his company.
Okay.
And they sell training aids. And Sam used to be a member here at Salina Country Club. We're old friends. He was a very good player. And so we had a lot of great conversations over the years played some golf together and had conversations about, golf swings and training aids and learning and so on. And so I had nothing to do with the founding of the company, but we were talking one day about putting and using a putter gate and a ball gate, as a training aid, and something that I believe in heavily. But I explained to him the problem with it is it takes too much time to set up because it needs to be set up perfectly. If it's not set up perfectly, you can do more harm than good. And so I told him it can take 10 to 15 minutes to get it set up exactly how you want it.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, let's come up with something, some sort of training aid that lets you set it up quickly. And so I started working on it right away, and he and I came up with some ideas, and that's how the training aid, we went back and forth a number of times with prototypes, and finally came up with the final product. And then that product kind of evolved into a couple of other things over the years. So,
like the mirror, I'm sure if you're watching this, I'm sure you've seen 1,000 of those eyeline putting mirrors, the ones that go on the putting green, show you where your shoulders are lined up, your eyes and everything. Did you have anything to do with that, or was
no,
that
that was one of Sam's first products?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and really, it was born out of some of his own practice sessions, training aids that he wished he had, and so he went and started developing them. My gate trainer that we developed was designed to be used alongside the mirror, and so you had everything with it. that you needed,
Okay.
not only to see if your eyes were in the right place and your shoulders were in the right place, but that your putter face was in the right place and that you were starting the ball on line.
Interesting. Okay. So, and there's a balance, I think, between making a putting or a training aid in general in golf that isn't just a household item with your name slapped on it. Like for instance, I use the putting stick. I don't know who makes it, but and I will admit it's not worth the 60 or $100 or whatever it is. It's a ruler. It's a ruler with the putting stick written on it, and it's great. But you can buy a ruler for $3 and get the exact same thing. What I really liked about your training aids is that nothing that you make is something you can just go buy at the hardware store. Like so many training aids are. Like a ruler you can just go and buy. That thing with the string, I made one of those for the elevated putting line. I made one of those for $2.
Yeah.
I just got a thing of string. I bought 2 little metal rods from a hardware store for 30 cents each, and it was incredibly easy. Does that ever go into the thought process of like, let's make something that's unique that isn't just like something that you can just go to the hardware store and buy? Or is it more of like, what do you think is going to work the best, and so what if it's a common piece of
It's
equipment?
more along those lines. It's more about, is it portable? Can the player carry it in their bag? Can they take it with them everywhere they go? Is it easy to use, and is it effective? And so now the putting training aid that we developed had a lot of details in it that you couldn't, if you just laid a board down on the ground or a piece of plastic, you wouldn't have that. We had a lot of measurements that related to the size of the golf ball and things that, like I was talking to you, that complemented using it either with the eyeline mirror or some of their other products. And so you wouldn't have been able to go out and buy that anywhere, which made the product, I think, even better. But it's mostly about, is it easy to carry with you? Is it easy to use? And is it effective? And we felt like it checked off all of those.
If you would, if there's one training aid you would tell every single golfer you work with, you have to have this, what would it be?
Of course, that one.
Yeah, the one that you made? Okay. Great.
No, honestly,
and I was gonna say, like,
without,
I felt bad for just teeing that up and just saying, all right, go ahead, hit this out of the park. But yeah, I mean, obviously, you wouldn't make a training aid that you didn't 100% believe in. But
right,
I would say I agree with you.
I would narrow it down to something even more simple than that, and that is, and as you heard me say probably 100 times at least in the 2 years that you were on my team. Just putting 2 tees out there and being able to roll the ball through those 2 tees through that gate. If you can't roll the ball on line, there's no reason to work on anything else.
Randy, I'm gonna cut this part, but you can't tell people just to use tees. You got to make money somehow. You got to sell things. No, well, you can use the 2 tees, but also use the what would you call it? Not a stencil, but a guide. That guide that you made.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Yeah.
Which,
So 2
which
tees
would be a gate trainer, and Eyeline Golf has a number of other training aids that have the same features involved in them. And so the gate trainer that we designed has actually morphed into some other things in their line also. But anyway, the key is that a player learns how to roll the ball on line, and if they can do that, then developing the speed and the read is something that you kind of have to do at every golf course that you go to. You have to practice enough to internalize that. But it starts with being able to roll the ball on your intended line. And so anything that helps you learn to do that, I think is priority one. And so, and that's part of why we developed that training aid.
So this has already gone on for an hour, and I hate to take more of your time, but I do have just a couple more questions I want to ask. So what is the craziest thing you've done to save money on tour?
Well, I learned to cram a whole lot of things into a golf travel bag. I could get more things in a golf travel bag so that I didn't have to pay for another bag. And I knew just about where that weight limit was, and I could almost tell you how much it weighed by picking it up and if it was going to pass or not.
Did you ever have to like bat your eyelashes at a TSA agent and say it's 51 pounds? Come on, just.
I did get some slack cut towards me a couple of times, but those were many years ago before some of the scrutiny that they have to adhere to now.
What would be your biggest piece of advice to somebody who is starting out as a head golf professional and maybe doesn't know what the transition is going to be like?
Oh gosh. Well, we've discussed a lot of it.
Yeah.
And remember to this sounds like such a cliche, but remember to stop and smell the roses every day, to appreciate that you get to come to a golf course and work. And our job is really to help people have fun.
Yeah.
To help them enjoy themselves. That's not really difficult to do if you're having fun.
Yeah. Okay.
And so if you find that you don't enjoy it, then you should do something else. But if you really do enjoy it, it's easy to help other people enjoy their time at the golf course and at the club. And I was lucky that I developed a passion for teaching that made it even more enjoyable. I love to go help people with their games, which for me complemented that general attitude I had about my job is to help people enjoy themselves out here.
That probably should have been my last question, but I just remembered I had one more. Who was the most improved player you've ever worked with, and what do you think made them improve that much? Please don't say me. Don't do that.
I'll go totally the opposite.
Okay.
Totally the opposite. I had a lady come to me for lessons one time that had just retired.
Okay.
And she weighed maybe 95 pounds. She was a little tiny gal, just really enjoyable to be around. But honestly, at the end of her series of lessons, I really felt like a failure. I felt like I had not done a good job in helping her learn to play the game and helping her learn to enjoy the game. And I really felt like by the end of the series of lessons that she probably would not continue to play golf, that she would just decide, this isn't really my thing. And a couple of years later, I ran into her at a function here in Salina, and she came up and she gave me a hug and told me how much fun she was having playing golf and how much she loved the game. And then she told me what she was shooting. And I was really surprised. But it was one of my favorite moments as a golf instructor with someone that I felt like I hadn't done a good job, and then to find out that she actually did become a pretty good golfer and thoroughly enjoyed the game. So I would say she had to have improved the most of anyone I've ever worked with, because the last day of her series of lessons, I didn't think she would continue.
Well, you know what? Actually, I take it back. That was probably the best way we could have finished. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Randy. I hope this becomes a series that we can learn a lot about the life of a head golf professional, and I think this was a great start. Obviously, you've had a illustrious career as a head golf professional, and the impact you've had on the members around here and all the people you've worked with, it's really immeasurable. So I appreciate you coming out. I'm not going to shake your hand because
we're not supposed to.
We're not supposed to do that. I will instead give you an Air 5. The camera's not running, but just here, you're not going to be able to hear it, but trust me, there's an Air 5 being given right now. If you would like to hear additional episodes, not exactly sure where this is going to be going yet. I will put a link to it in the description if this ends up on YouTube. If this is a clip and you're listening to a clip of the podcast or the interviews, the Head Pro Life show, head over to All Star Pro Golf. We'll have the full show over there if you want to hear this conversation with Randy Syring. And trust me, you do. Head over to All Star Pro Golf. And while you're at it, order a box of teas or whatever you need to run your golf shop. It's the best place to get it. And if you want to continue to hear these episodes, that's the number one way you can support us. Buy from All Star Pro Golf. And thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you next time.
And like I said, guys, this show is brought to you by All Star Pro Golf. We are launching a brand new site on All Star Pro Golf. You're going to be able to order directly from the website now, so a whole lot easier to order your supplies that you need to run your golf shop. If you need boxes of tees, boxes of pencils, scorecards, ball markers, divot tools, club repair tools, anything else you need, head over to All Star Pro Golf, your one-stop shop for everything pro shop related.